Okay, Patrick, I am recording now.
Okay.
Just getting this thing going so we can get you out of here, get you to Prineville, huh?
That's right, road trip.
You got a busy day, huh?
Oh, it's been crazy, yeah. And the pass was a little scary.
Really?
You might appreciate the purple, the blue and red states. And we're gonna make Oregon a purple state.
Surprised.
Independent.
Paris had much snow on it. It did, huh?
It did, yeah. But it was clear, so we had a little bit of a delay for our sisters, and we met with others.
It's been such a weird winter over here.
Yeah. It was
Looks
totally
dry.
raining on the other side.
Yeah, it sounds like the valley's been terrible as far as rain's gone.
Yeah, and snow in the mountains. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's almost May, I mean.
Well, we appreciate you coming by. Let's see, I just
Appreciate you
messed
having
that
time.
up.
And then there's a million candidates.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of, we weren't sure how we were going to handle this part.
Did the shoots? It's pretty busy, right? The county.
Chris, would you sit next to him? It's always
scale.
weird when he's talking to nobody in the screenshot. And I'll sit
We
there.
can all sit together.
Yeah, well, why don't you we always give everybody just a couple minutes to start off. Just tell us about
Okay.
yourself and your
Well,
platform.
As you probably know, a lot of people are feeling disenfranchised or alienated from politics. And I think one of the big reasons is because the big money in politics is a lot louder than their voice could be. And so we've restricted our contributions to $100 per person to help model campaign finance reform, which is my main issue I'm going to be running on. Obviously, the others have raised over millions of dollars, and one contribution from one donor is $500,000. So we hope that, and we are seeing it resonate with a lot of different voters across the spectrum. That's the elephant in the room that everyone knows is there, and it's affecting our politics terribly. So that's why I threw my hat in the ring, and especially when you look at, as a school board member in the past, you see the up and down cycle of funding. We would merge a classroom, first and second grade, and then we'd get money and we'd have to hire a second grade teacher, but then the next cycle we'd have to let that person go. So I feel like school board members know the most of how terrible things are in Salem. So, and that's why I'm running, because we need some reform, but it has to start with campaign finance.
So what specific ideas do you have in the realm of campaign finance?
Well, there are a lot of models across the country with different states have clean election laws and stuff, and you may be aware in 2020 there's a measure coming forward to do it statewide, but this will be before that. So my first 100 days, that's the primary focus. I hope not to sign any other legislation except for campaign finance. So I'm going to hold strong to that, that we get that focus first, because then you can have discussions about PERS reform, education reform, or tax reform. But until you get that fixed, you can't really tweak the other stuff.
So you see it as just there's going to be specific tenets to the legislation, or you were just going to support the bill that's out in 2020?
Well, eventually if we have it worked out in 2019, we won't need the measure in 2020, but by modeling it with my own campaign finance restrictions and winning this election, because over 38% of the voters are not with either of the major parties, so I feel like our numbers are pretty good to support against Pepsi and Coke, I call it. So, and a lot of people are frustrated with both the incumbent and the front runner. They're not happy, so I hope to be a choice for that when they're disenfranchised after their primary. They'll vote for the independent as their next choice.
Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about the things that are on your voter pamphlet info. So you talk about, obviously, the school funding, dealing with unfunded mandates and things like that. So tell us about your solutions for school funding.
Well, for one, I would see a measure in the future where you would require state legislators and senators and governor even to have served on school boards. I think that would be a very important reformation of the electoral process, because There are 11 different senators and reps that have been on school boards, and I think they bring a lot more experience to that table in Salem than people who have never been, or especially people that come from certain special interest groups that have no idea about schools. They've never even been on a school board. So I think the big challenges for schools obviously are like the PERS burden and healthcare costs. Our school in McKenzie River, we only had 30 employees, but we had $24,000 a month for healthcare insurance, which goes to a private healthcare company. So those kinds of expenses, if you get those under control, you can have more boots on the ground in the classrooms. You know? And so those are two big obvious issues for school funding.
What would be your solution for PERS reform?
Well, I would have a nonpartisan task force that's uninfluenced by the big, you know, after we did the campaign finance reform, because right now it's totally influenced by large special interests. But part of the problem that everyone recognizes is it's a pyramid that's upside down. It's like you have tons of people retiring, but you don't have a lot of new, even with cities and counties, you don't have a lot of new people adding to the base. There was a piece of legislation that failed, but I would support something similar. I'm not talking any specific details, but I'd like to open that discussion back where you broaden the base of PERS and actually expand it to Burger King gas stations. So you have a bigger base to support retirees. And we could call it ours, you know, O-U-R-S. Plus that would get rid of the whole us versus them that you sense. You know, being a cabinet maker in construction trades, you get a lot of animosity. You know, it doesn't need to be there for public employees.
What do you make of the number of recommendations that Governor Brown commissioned to find solutions to the PERS crisis? I think that was about a year ago that she started that process.
Yeah, I think it's a good effort, but again, as long as you have large special interest groups funding her and her opponents and other state senators, you really can't have an honest discussion around the table or creative discussion, and, you know, thinking outside the box, because you have these people that you're beholden to. So once we've fixed that, I would bring a task force together to talk about a more holistic approach to revenue and education. You know, being on the school board, our school, when I got on, was 75% graduation rate, which is terrible. That means that only three out of the 4 students were graduating. Now it's up to 90 when I left. Because I was like, even if we have to go to their house, I told the principal, and get you know, because it's like a mortgage. You know, after 12 years of investment, that last year you just pull out, and you lose. You know, it goes to foreclosure. If you look at that kind of example, which is a shame for everyone. You know? Not just the taxpayers investing for 12 years and then not having them graduate, which limits their access to other, you know. Also, I think when you, being in school boards, you see, and you go to these conferences and stuff, you see so many silos. And you see them in Salem too. You have higher ed and preschool and special ed, you know, ESDs. I was on the ESD board, and they're all competing for these limited dollars. I would like to see us have a lifetime learner approach, so that if you wanted to get your graduate PhD or if you wanted to get back into community college, it would be, you know, way easier than it is now.
Were there specific steps that you took when you were on school board to help raise graduation rates?
Yeah, I targeted the principal. I said, you know, and it's sort of what I said. I said, if we have to go to their house and get them back, you know, whatever it takes to get, you know, because it's not a huge school. That's the advantage we had versus like Portland or something. You know, we only had 200 kids and 15 of them are in the senior class. It's like, you know, let's get on it. I mean, what's, you know, if you're making the salary you're making, let's make it happen. You know?
Do you think that, would there be other, other specific things that you could recommend? Obviously, this position you're running for, they do have those large schools to kind of, you know, maybe those.
Well, one of the improvements has been the Measure 98, because there's a lot of folks, I have family members that are, you know, that are more hands-on learners, you know, and when you have shop classes like I did when I was a kid down in Winston-Dillard, and you can learn all these different skills that aren't just academic. That's real important because they have a relationship to graduation rates.
Mm-hmm.
But you need that funding, and as long as you have a huge chunk of money going to healthcare or to PERS, you're not going to be able to get that shop. You know, we struggled to hang on to our shop teacher because they had this cool shop at McKenzie River from the 40s, but it was empty. You know, and it's all the infrastructure is across the state. And other learning, there's flipped classrooms where you have a recorded lecture that the students take home and can pause it and rewind it and get it. And then they come into the classroom and the teacher is more of a coach helping them with their homework. So I've seen that work. It's a flipped classroom. So, you know, once we get, I hate to be a broken, once we get campaign finance reform, I think we can have real open, creative solutions to a lot of these problems without the special interests, you know, saying, no, you can't go there. We don't want to do that. You know, so I really feel like it's restricting. And Oregon is like second to the bottom on campaign finance reform, just above Mississippi, which is similar to our graduation rates. You know, I don't know that there's a relationship, but it's worth exploring.
You brought up healthcare a couple times, so what's your take on that and where we should be headed with the state managing?
I don't know, you know, the OHP, I remember Kids Harbor worked on OHP and that was a good start. There's a lot more work to do in that arena. And again, you know, you have big pharma, you have health insurance companies influencing state senators, and I don't feel like you can have an honest discussion when you have all this big money funding these campaigns. Because these folks aren't going to.
Single payer system?
I would be open to looking into it. You know, I think it needs to be weighed, and you know, you don't want the lack of competition, and you don't want restrictions that you hear about, but you do definitely want to have it on the table with everything else. And it can't be right now. A lot of issues cannot be brought up because you have big pharma.
How do you see overcoming those? You know, obviously those companies want to have their influence and
Well,
do.
yeah.
How does that overcome?
Well, they'll still be there, obviously, but when you have the state senators sitting around the table, they won't be the same guys that gave them money to get there. So there'll be more of a disconnect that we need than we have now. So when they come to the table, they have people that got them there, and we won't have that. It'll be just your $100, my $100, every little person's $100, and we'll get them there rather than 20,000. I mean, I worked on a Senate race down in Roseburg, and $20,000 from Big Pharma. And my person that I worked with, he raised $20,000 in small donations. And this Jeff Cruz is who it was. He had $20,000 from Big Pharma. Is one of his donors, you know, because he was the chair of the health board, you know, the committee. So it makes it very difficult to have any kind of discussion about, you know, what's good for people versus what's good for them.
Definitely.
I mean, even if I can, even in Obamacare, the fact that the health insurance companies are still at the table there, that's why I think it didn't work. You know, the premiums are still going up because they're still at the table.
If you don't make it on through this race, or I guess if you don't win the primary and this is off the table for you, what do you plan to do next?
Well, I would come back again. I think getting your name out there is important no matter what. But then if there's that ballot measure for the help for campaign finance, I'd be a big supporter of that. But I would run again too. Yeah. But I think I don't know if you followed what happened in the independent primary. 2 of the other opponents did get in the voters pamphlet, so that makes it really hard for them to win.
Yeah, is there only just one?
There's 3 of us.
There's 3,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so if they didn't make the deadline, I guess is the.
Well, it's $3,000. Here's another thing you could change.
Yeah.
But you can gather signatures too. I know the woman from Eugene, the Democrat, she gathered 500 signatures to avoid the $3,000. But we loaned the campaign that money, and then the $100 donations will refund that. Because I don't want any large donations. And I've had them offered. $10,000 is the common donation for the two other front runners. We're not doing it. We're not doing that. And it's getting a lot of support. And people are ready for, I mean, you saw Bernie and even Obama, they had small donations as their backbone. That's the model.
Yeah.
And no matter what spectrum they're on, they seem to support the big money is not good for democracy. So we'll see when the Cowboys in Prineville, because that's what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, and they want another choice. If Newt wins, I don't think they're happy. And I want to offer them another choice that's more honest and straightforward.
Do you have questions, Chris?
Well, I did, but it's more specifically about your plans as far as the timber industry and keeping manufacturing in Oregon.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that work at the mill in Brightwood. I don't know if you've spoken in matters or not, but they have a very hard time keeping that place running, specifically because of employment levels.
Right.
Can't keep anybody in the place. So I'm just kind of curious how you think that works. It's a great idea to keep manufacturing here, but if at their current levels they can't staff, how does that go forward?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of that plant, but I look forward to visiting. Are they having a problem because other plants are pulling those people?
They're just having a problem keeping people there.
Having a problem with qualified people?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to education. You know, if we had shop classes like when I was a kid, you know, you would already have those skills even in middle school. You know, and hopefully you would have more of a hands-on. One of the things we were doing in McKinsey is the kids are learning to have their own business. And like one person did the duct tape wallet, and now they graduated and they're doing that. That's their business, you know. And it, you know, it's an internet business. That's what we were talking about on the way here. You don't have to necessarily be on the main drag because the phone will tell you you're in some back alley. If you're looking for that product, you know, you can find it where it is, you know. So that whole creative, open, lifetime learning thing is so important to any industry, not just the wood industry. Yeah, I would volunteer in classes to read a tape measure, which is fractions, you know. And I would teach that using milk jugs, the gallon milk jug, the half-gallon quart, and make it real for them. And then we apply it to the tape measure, or you use the pizza idea, you know. And they would get it, and then we build stuff. And I would volunteer at the alternative school in Roseburg doing that. And they would get fractions, 5/8, you know, which is what you need if you're working on a mill. Like
Yeah.
that, you know. And so, like my thing on the webpage, to get more into the details, is that when you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you can't buy Oregon cabinets, even though we make the materials that are made in those cabinets here. So it's a matter of connecting the dots, and I feel like I'm a good team player for putting the team together for the industry to do that, and that way we re-attract these workers and these places to build stuff here in Oregon, rather than shipping the materials to LA and then shipping the cabinets back to Lowe's. That's crazy, you know? Especially if you're talking about carbon. Right? Carbon footprint.
Yeah, I was curious about how you feel about Oregon's coal-free initiative.
Well, I think I tell everyone, even if they're super conservative, cleaner is always better. And my dad was a mechanic, and we used to argue all the time. Internal combustion engine is only 30% efficient at best, even if you had your garden hose cooling it. And electric vehicles are 90% efficient. So it's a no-brainer to get off the fossil fuels, not to mention the dependence on foreign fossil fuels, you know. So I think it's going to happen. Just like they say, the markets are changing with solar panels being competitive. And as a governor, you can, again, you can connect those dots, help connect those dots, put the people in, without big money influence in the discussion, because I think we could have a really great brainstorming session if we didn't have the special interests yanking our chain or wagging our dog. You know, which we haven't had. And even in Oregon, which was surprised to learn was second to the bottom.
Yeah,
in campaign
interesting.
finance reform. Yeah, I could send you the article.
Yeah, sure.
The Center for Political Integrity or something. That's shocking.
Don't you have a link to it off your website?
I
or
do.
what? Okay,
So,
yeah.
yeah, that was a little older, and some of it was influenced by that controversy with Kitzhaber, but it still needs work, obviously.
Mhm.
You know, that's why you have the PERS thing. Just get kicked down the road. There's really no
Yeah.
solution, because the visual is clear. It's top heavy. You know, the baby boomers are retiring, and we have all these young workers that need pensions as well. You know, especially as self-employed cabinet makers.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you think we should know before, we don't want to keep you too long and our team is.
Right, you're
needs
got a
us
deadline.
too.
Well, I think those other issues that independents are strong on, and I'm strong on, are the gerrymandering that you see. There's a lot of states that have a nonpartisan commission that works on that rather than the partisan legislature. So I'd like to see that, because you get these crazy districts. There was one in the McKenzie River. It went from McKenzie Bridge in East Lane County to Douglas County. It was all the national forest. That was, I tried to run for that district as an independent. And then also the open primary. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but as an independent, not being able to vote in these last few primaries, almost all the primaries, that is strong for independents. They're really tired of that. So, and it gets 30%, and we're going to build on that 30% and win this election. So, the 38% of people are not with either party.
Yeah.
And we can even pull, like the guys in Prineville that aren't happy. We're going to pull there, and we're going to pull. We've met a lot of Democrats that aren't happy. So
Yeah.
people are ready.
Definitely.
Yeah.
How does that work? Would that have to be a measure that would be passed to open the primary?
It could be, or if we had this success with the campaign finance reform, because keep in mind I have to pull state senators from both parties to make that happen, to get that legislation. I just get to sign it. I mean, I can write it and put it to them, but I'd really like to see it be a grassroots effort. And if we win this, we can model that campaign finance, which will encourage them to say, hey, back off, we're going to do something for Oregon. And hopefully we could do it right there in Salem too. It doesn't always have to be a ballot measure, but it could be. But it's a momentum ball, get the ball rolling. And the campaign finance would be the first huge success. And then the other smaller reforms could follow. That's the plan.
Anything else?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Well.
Pretty exciting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm independent. I have been forever.
Me
Yeah.
too, yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for your time. I know you're on deadline. It's been
Nice meeting you.
Yeah.
I've been into that shop in McKenzie
Yeah.
before.
We've literally seen it.
Yeah, I've been in there.
Isn't that
I went in
cool?
there- Yeah, I went in there for a tour with the